Steve Moser, president of the Population Research Institute, has dedicated his life to exposing the truth about the Chinese Communist Party. His book offers a chilling glimpse into the darkest corners of the CCP's reign. Moser's expertise stems from years of research and first-hand experience, making him a leading voice in understanding the CCP's terrifying impact on China and the world. His work is a stark reminder of the human cost of totalitarian regimes. Moser's journey began in the late 1970s when he witnessed the brutal implementation of the one-child policy. This policy, enforced through forced abortions and sterilizations, left an indelible mark on China's demographic landscape. The CCP's disregard for human life, as Moser argues, extends far beyond this policy, encompassing a systematic campaign of oppression and violence that continues to this day. Moser's work is particularly relevant today as the CCP under Xi Jinping tightens its grip on power. Xi, often compared to Mao Down in his ruthlessness, has overseen a dramatic escalation in the persecution of religious minorities and dissidents. The world must heed Moser's warnings and confront the reality of the CCP's brutal nature. Ignoring the plight of the Chinese people, he argues, is not only a moral failure but also a strategic blunder with potentially global consequences. The one-child policy, implemented in 1979, stands as one of the most egregious examples of government overreach in human history. What began as an attempt to control population growth quickly morphed into a system of forced abortions and sterilizations. Families faced unbearable pressure to conform, often coerced into abandoning or even killing their children to avoid punishment. The consequences of this policy continue to haunt China today. The most immediate and obvious impact is the skewed sex ratio. With a traditional preference for sons, many families resorted to sex-selective abortions, leading to a surplus of men and a shortage of women. This imbalance has had a profound impact on Chinese society, contributing to social instability and a rise in human trafficking. Beyond the demographic consequences, the one-child policy inflicted deep psychological wounds on the Chinese people. The trauma of forced abortions and the grief of losing a child created a generation scarred by the state's brutality. The policy also eroded traditional family structures and undermined the sanctity of life. The CCP's brutality extends far beyond the one-child policy. Moser argues that the CCP is the biggest killing machine in history, responsible for more deaths than any other regime, including those of Stalin and Hitler. From the anti-rightist campaigns of the 1950s to the horrors of the Cultural Revolution, the CCP has left a trail of blood and suffering in its wake. The Great Leap Forward, Mao's disastrous attempt to collectivize agriculture, resulted in the deaths of tens of millions of people from starvation. The Cultural Revolution, a decade of political and social upheaval, saw widespread persecution, torture, and murder. Intellectuals, artists, and anyone deemed a threat to the regime were targeted. Today, the CCP continues its campaign of repression against Tibetans, Uyghurs, and other religious and ethnic minorities. Forced labor, re-education camps, and cultural genocide are tools used by the CCP to maintain its grip on power. The CCP's history is a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the human cost of totalitarian ideologies. Under Xi Jinping, the CCP has taken a decidedly authoritarian turn. Xi has consolidated power to an unprecedented degree, eliminating rivals and silencing dissent. He has also overseen a dramatic crackdown on freedom of speech, religion, and the press. His vision for China is one of absolute control, with the CCP dictating every aspect of life. Moser argues that Xi's leadership is heavily influenced by legalism, an ancient Chinese philosophy that emphasizes strict laws, harsh punishments, and absolute obedience to the ruler. This philosophy, embraced by some of China's most ruthless emperors, stands in stark contrast to the Confucian values of harmony and benevolence. Xi's embrace of legalism is evident in his policies. The crackdown on dissent, the persecution of religious minorities, and the expansion of surveillance technology all point to a regime determined to crush any challenge to its authority. Moser's insights into Xi's ideological underpinnings provide a valuable lens through which to understand the CCP's current trajectory.